Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for granting this urgent question. The Attorney General previously represented former Sinn Fein leader Gerry Adams in a damages claim brought forward by victims of IRA bombings. Indeed, we know that he received £30,000 for that representation. The constitutional propriety of our legal system demands absolute clarity. Clarity on how conflicts of interest with former clients are managed at the very highest levels of government. This goes far beyond individual matters of advice. It strikes at the very heart of the proper administration of justice. Let me be absolutely clear. This is not about Lord Hermer's career at the bar. This is about the proper mechanisms for recusal when matters concerning former clients come before government. The House must know what safeguards are in place to protect the public interest when such situations arise, especially regarding sections 46 and 47 of the Northern Ireland Troubles Act. And so I ask the Solicitor General, what are the formal procedures for the Attorney General's recusal in matters involving former clients? Has the Attorney General recused himself from any matters since taking office? What assessment has been made of potential conflicts arising from his extensive litigation against the government? This all goes to the heart of public confidence in our legal system. The Prime Minister stood at that dispatch box and promised this House a government of standards and integrity. The proper management of conflicts of interest at the highest levels of government legal service is not optional. It is fundamental to that promise.
Please. It is 2 minutes, not 3. And we've got to stick to the rules. I've allowed you to go out. I didn't cough for my own health. It was to give you a hint to come to the end. Have you now finished?
Thank you.
I'm done.
Mr. Speaker, I've outlined the rigorous process that exists in the Attorney General's office and has existed across administrations of all colours. The House may be aware that the Shadow Justice Secretary has written to the Cabinet Secretary seeking clarity, the clarity that she refers to, on that process and an investigation into it. The Cabinet Secretary has today confirmed by reply that the Attorney General's office has a rigorous system in place to ensure that a law officer would not be consulted on any matter that could give rise to a potential conflict of interest. He has restated that these arrangements are long-standing and part of a standard practice that has applied in successive administrations. I would encourage honourable and right honourable members opposite to take comfort from that statement. The shadow...
Sorry. Please, if I'm stood, you have to sit down. Can I say, Mr Mullen, whether it's here, wherever, I do not want a running commentary for you on everything that we're debating. Do we understand each other? Because, please, I've certainly had enough of it. Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Shadow Solicitor General has raised the previous experience of the Attorney General. Lord Hermer is a very experienced barrister, and during his time in private practice prior to his appointment to government, he represented high-profile clients in a number of cases. It is a central and well-understood aspect of the British legal system, as she, I know, knows, that barristers are required to accept instructions if they are available and qualified to do so. Mr Speaker, this is the well-known cab rank principle. She will also be very aware that, put simply, barristers are not their clients. As the Bar Council states, barristers do not choose their clients, nor do they associate themselves with their clients' opinions or behaviour by virtue of representing them. And Mr. Speaker, there's been a really cynical linking in recent days by the opposition of the Attorney General with some of his previous clients. Mr. Speaker, I grew up on military bases in armed forces communities in the 1980s. I remember what it felt like when my dad had to check underneath the car before we made every single journey. And Mr. Speaker, I note this because it's the backdrop against which I say that I would defend with every fibre of my being the duty of any barrister in this country, including Lord Hermer, to defend any client before any court, as indeed we all should. And I will end by restating the principle in words that I think are particularly powerful. Do not judge a surgeon by their patients, a journalist by their interviewees, or a lawyer by their clients. Those were the words of the current Conservative Shadow Attorney General.
Chair of the Select Committee, Andrew Slaughter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Would the Solicitor General agree that what the Shadow Solicitor General is asking her to do, in a not very subtle way, is to breach the Law Officers' Convention by the back door? If the Attorney General were to reveal whether or not he were able to advise on a particular issue, that would reveal the fact that he'd been asked to advise on it. The opposition's intention is clear, it's to gain party advantage. The effect is to undermine the rule of law.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his question, and I very much agree with him. I'm happy, though, to confirm that where the Attorney General has conflicts, he will recuse himself.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Ben Maguire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The shambolic Conservative government created a crisis for democracy in this country with their cronyism, rule-breaking and constant sleaze scandals. They even appointed the member for Torridge and Tavistock as their Attorney General, who before his appointment represented some of the world's largest tax dodgers. The Liberal Democrats want to repair the damage that was done by the constant stream of Conservative sleaze and finally restore public trust in our politics. I do, however, have some questions for the Solicitor General. Has the Attorney General sought independent legal advice regarding any possible conflicts of interest relating to his previous work at Matrix Chambers? Can the Solicitor General assure the House that all and any impropriety will be thoroughly looked into? And will the Solicitor General please introduce annual training on conflicts of interest and ethics for all ministers? And finally, enshrine the Ministerial Code in law?
Can I just say, I know there was a mention of another member. I don't think it was critical, that's fine, but if it was critical, I hope you did him. Just let me finish. I'm sure that you would have informed the Honourable, and you did. There you see, you're getting all excited. Come on, Solicitor General.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for his question. I've outlined the rigorous process that exists in the Attorney General's office, and as I said, it has existed across administrations of all colours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to declare my interest as a member of the Justice Select Committee. Does my right honourable friend agree that the opposition's position fundamentally misunderstands the role of lawyers in our justice system? The Attorney General also represented victims of the tragedy in Grenfell Tower. And does my right honourable friend agree that the Attorney General has followed the same processes as his predecessors in managing any potential conflicts, and we are faced with just another example of the opposition trying to undermine our legal institutions merely for political gain?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his question, and I very much agree with him. The undermining of this really foundational principle of our legal system, it has been extremely cynical.
Desmond Sway.
Speaker, sections 46 and 47 of the Legacy Act enjoyed unanimous support in both this House and in the other place. It is the choice of the government to repeal those sections that have raised the question before us today and opened up the possibility of compensating Gerry Adams, isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, I don't agree, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having served both as a distinguished advocate and now law officer, doesn't the Attorney General's experience make him uniquely qualified to uphold the rule of law and advise government appropriately?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for her question. It won't be a surprise to hear that I very much agree with her. The Lord Hermer is an extraordinarily experienced barrister, and he brings that experience into his role as Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I understand the Solicitor General wants to maintain the confidentiality of the legal officer's office. However, the issue before us is one of, is there a conflict of interest? So, for example, the Attorney General has advocated in relation to the policies of the Israeli government. Then we've had a change of policy by the government that has been directly influenced by the legal advice that's been given. So the challenge here is, has that advice been given on the basis of prejudicial views prior to entering the Attorney General's office? Now, I don't expect the Solicitor General to unveil the details of this, but she must understand that that is the impression that is being given, and every aspect of transparency and democracy requires the fact that the impartial advice given by the Attorney General to the government is correct, but also not prejudiced.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member will know that the Law Officers Convention means that I can't confirm that the Attorney General has advised, nor if advice has been sought on any matter.
Melinda Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to say there's some extraordinary attacks that we're seeing this morning, absolutely shameless, because not only is the Attorney General a barrister of international standing, but, as my honourable friend said, he represented the victims of Grenfell Tower. Does the Solicitor General agree with me that the party opposite would do well to remember that when they attack the Attorney General for his former clients?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to my honourable member for the question. I agree with her.
Alan.
Oh, sorry, thank you. I'm so used to being last. I apologise for that.
Somebody else if you wish.
My humblest apologies, Mr. Speaker. I apologise for that. I'm here. My motivation, clearly, Mr. Speaker, is for justice for the innocent victims. And that's what I'm about. At the heart of this UQ is Gerry Adams. When this House puts in place a pension for innocent victims of the Troubles and excludes at that time perpetrators from applying, it was Gerry Adams and his colleagues who sought to block the pensions being put in place. Adams' hands, Mr. Speaker, are dripping with innocent blood, not least from when he was the commander of a Le Mans bombing which killed the main of my constituents. So will the Attorney General excuse himself or herself from all matters relating to Adams? And will this government ensure that Adams doesn't get one single penny?
Mr. Speaker, the Law Officers Convention, as I've already stated, does not permit me to reveal where the Attorney General has been asked for advice, nor when he has advised.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I draw attention to my register of interest as a member of the Bar. It seems that the party opposite is deliberately feigning ignorance about our constitution to make an empty political point. The truth is that lawyers in this country represent clients without fear or favour. We do not in this country associate the views of our clients or the clients with the views of their lawyers, and there is the concept of the cab rank rule. So would the Solicitor General agree with me that the Law Officers Convention and existing processes, which, as my honourable friend says, have been in place for many years under successive governments, can be left to regulate conflicts of interest as it always has done, and that if the party opposite genuinely had a problem with it, they would have changed it when they were in government?
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend. I'm grateful to him for putting this point. It's, as I said earlier, barristers are quite simply not their clients. And as I said, those are the words of the current Conservative Shadow Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The current Attorney General has a track record of taking up multiple cases against the British government. Given his previous work, both with regards to Gerry Adams and the families of those making claims against UK Special Forces, on which matters will the Attorney General recuse himself from advising ministers owing to clear conflicts of interest? And if he is not able to fulfil the full scope of his role owing to his prior career, is his position even tenable?
Question.
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid I couldn't be more clear. I've already said that where the Attorney General has conflicts, he will recuse himself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As someone who grew up in Warrington, who was friends with Tim Parry, who was murdered by the IRA, I then subsequently had to do public affairs engagement work in Northern Ireland, so I'm well aware of some of the difficulties which can come from the outcome, shall we say, of some of the violence suffered in Northern Ireland. However, does the Solicitor General agree with me that, and I quote, a lawyer should not be identified personally with the cause for which they are arguing? Those are not my words. They belong to the distinguished commercial barrister, the Conservative Shadow Attorney General. Does the Solicitor General agree with me about those words?
Mr. Speaker, I agree wholeheartedly with my honourable friend.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Under the Ministerial Code, every minister has a responsibility to address a conflict of interest or a perception of such an interest. So can the Solicitor General be open with the House whether, when the Attorney General was appointed, he chose or was required to recuse himself from advising on issues where he had previously represented clients such as Gerry Adams?
Mr. Speaker, I've already addressed this point.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
One. Totally hasn't. You haven't been there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister accept that the Law Officers Convention does not extend to questions of recusal or conflicts of interest, and so the House and the British people do have the right to have questions on these matters answered transparently?
Quite right. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I've been abundantly clear on this. Where the Attorney General has conflicts, he will recuse himself. The Law Officers Convention does not permit me to say in relation to which matters he has recused himself, because in doing so, I would reveal the matters which the law officers have been asked to advise on, or indeed have advised on.
Joe Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like the Solicitor General, I also practice as a solicitor. She must know the questions that are being put are not calling into question a barrister's right to represent clients. This is about a barrister who is now the Attorney General. Does she accept that the Law Officers Convention is being extended in the interest of the Attorney General not answering legitimate questions about recusal and conflict of interest, and that nobody should seek to extend that principle beyond its intention in order to remain silent?
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Mr. Speaker, I do not accept that the Law Officers Convention is being extended at all. As I said, I could not be more clear. Where the Attorney General has conflicts, he will recuse himself.
That completes the question. I'll let the front bench change over.